Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Triad Travelogues. I am Richard, and I'm coming at you today from the outskirts of Shanghai, China, on a very, very special day. Today is 420. That's right, folks. Today is 420, and I am about to celebrate by drinking a beer. Now, I've been asked a question by some of my friends back home in the States, and they know that I live in China, and they want to know, do people in China celebrate 420? A lot of people want to know this, and so I figured I'd come onto my channel and make a little video about it. And the answer to that question is a resounding no. No, they don't. People in China just do not celebrate 420. And I think a lot of people from the United States probably think that the reason that it's not a big thing here, or not a thing at all, is because of the law, because people are afraid that they're going to get arrested and thrown into prison and have their heads cut off for having a small amount of weed in their possession. But that is just simply not the case. That's really not what happens here. From stories that I've heard and things I've read on the internet, what really happens is if somebody's caught with a really small amount of weed, and especially if it's a foreigner, generally what happens is they go to jail for like anywhere between 5 to 10 days. They may or may not get deported, but generally it's not that big of a deal. Like I know there's this idea that like the punishment is really, really extreme in China for having weed. And that's really not true. Now the punishment for selling it or for having large quantities of it, that's pretty extreme. Like you can seriously get into, well, you can get the most serious punishment of all for having, for being a dealer or whatever. But really the main reason that people here don't celebrate 420 and just generally the weed culture doesn't exist here. I mean, it exists. There are people that are into this kind of stuff. And like, obviously there's a drug culture here. I don't know about it. I've never seen it. Okay. I don't know these people. I'm not associated with these people, but those kinds of things exist everywhere in the world. But like in the United States of America, especially now in the United States, weed is this big thing. It's becoming legal everywhere in Colorado, Washington. I think they decriminalized it, and where I used to live in Maryland, it's become sort of accepted. It's not universally accepted in the States, but it's accepted enough to where it's not nearly as big of a deal as it was when I was in my 20s. Like if you're caught with it now in a state where it's illegal, you're probably not going to get anything but a ticket. And in some states, you can go to the store to like a special dispensary and you can just buy it. But the culture here in China is it's very much like anti just any kind of drug. And the thing is, people here, they tend to sort of put all recreational drugs in the same category as just bad and dangerous and socially unacceptable. My wife is a doctor, and she's well educated. She's been all over the world. She's traveled extensively. She has way more education than I will ever have in my life or have ever had in my life. And she has, she's familiar with pharmaceuticals, and she's familiar with how drugs interact with the human body. And, even with her knowledge and the things that she's learned, being in that kind of industry, she still looks at weed as being this just horrible, dangerous, disgusting, depraved thing that nobody should do. It's on the same level as like heroin or cocaine. It's just degenerates and deadbeats and just awful people that do these kinds of things. People here, they just have this idea of a person that would ingest anything into their bodies that would cause them to be high or to go into another state of consciousness. Those are bad people, except for one thing that they are okay with. Oh, actually, two things. The other thing is something that I don't do, which is smoke cigarettes. I think I read somewhere that like 73% of men in China smoke cigarettes on a daily basis. Which is a little bit different than drinking alcohol, because cigarettes are dangerous and they do eventually kill like half of the people that use them, but they don't alter your state of consciousness in such a way that you go into another place. You know, it's not as profound as like a weed experience or LSD or whatever. You know, it's a little buzz, and most people smoke because they're addicted to just having the nicotine. But I think most smokers don't, they're not getting high from the cigarettes like you do the first time when you're 14 years old and you smoke your first cigarette and you're like, whoa, I'm high, man. They just do it because they're addicted. But this, alcohol is a very socially accepted thing that, if you walk around in Shanghai, especially where I live on the outskirts of Shanghai, at night, especially on a weekend, you will see wasted people everywhere. And it sort of is just generally accepted that that's what people do, especially men, that's a social thing. They get together, they drink alcohol and smoke cigarettes, and they stumble home. And that is not even really looked at as being bad. I mean, I think there's a general awareness that cigarettes are bad for you, that alcohol is bad for you, but they definitely don't put it on the same level as like marijuana. So yeah, to answer that question, friends back home that probably are pretty stoned right now. Yeah, they don't celebrate 420 in China. I'm sure there's some people who do. Probably most of those people are expats or foreigners that are here. But if you're here right now in China and you're watching this video and you're asking yourself, should I try and find some weed today? Don't do that. It's a bad idea. This is not a good place to get caught with something like that. If you want to celebrate 420, do what I'm doing and just get drunk, because that's perfectly acceptable here. So I want to tell you a little story before we go about a holiday in Nepal, and it's called Shivaratri. I'm probably not saying that right because I'm an idiot. But Shivaratri is a holiday in Nepal that is dedicated to the god Shiva. And Shiva is the god of destruction and chaos and just fire, fire. Also, Shiva sort of represents regeneration. The end, like an apocalyptic scenario, is always the beginning. The end represents the beginning. So the destroyer, in a way, is very closely associated with the creator. So on Shivaratri, they celebrate fire and destruction, and they celebrate it by smoking marijuana. And in Nepal, marijuana is illegal, and it's a pretty serious offense. Like if you're Nepali and you get caught with weed, it's a pretty big deal. I think it's probably a bigger deal than it is here, just being like a casual user. But one day a year, it's not necessarily no longer illegal. It's just sort of everybody looks the other way and everybody smokes weed on this one day. And they celebrate the god of destruction and fire, and they smoke weed. And like they mix it in with the tea. Like I was at an orphanage. I was volunteering at an orphanage, and the kids were drinking weed tea, like milk tea with weed in it. Everyone was smoking weed. It was like, and it was all of those social standards that say it's, weed is bad and it's illegal and you shouldn't do it. All of those things are sort of just ignored for one day. And everybody smokes weed. But the next day, it's like illegal again. And so if you're caught with it, it's a big deal. So they act really like secretive about smoking, because a lot of people in Nepal smoke. I think a lot more people in Nepal smoke than weed than people in China. But they're really just secretive about it, and they hide when they do it. And they're really scared of the cops finding them, because the cops will like beat them, and take them to jail. But on Shivaratri, everyone is smoking, including the cops, the kids, the cops. Everyone's just smoking weed. So like Shivaratri is like the 420 of Nepal. Yeah, but they don't have that here in China. 420 today, People are just going to go about their day and they're going to work like they always do. And the kids are going to do their homework, 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 do their homework. People are going to work and then go to sleep and nobody's even going to think about it. Like, I asked a couple of my coworkers if they were familiar with 420 and they had no idea what I was talking about. So yeah, that's the answer to the question. Chinese people do not celebrate 420. And if you're in China right now, neither should you, because it's illegal. This has been a public service announcement from Triad Travelogues. I'm Richard. We'll see you next time.